Okay, as you can see, I've launched Reaper, and for this tutorial, I'm going to be talking about adding an audio track and some of the other parameters around that. First thing you want to do is go up to the track pull-down menu and select Insert New Track. And you'll notice that the shortcut is also shown here. For Mac, it's Command T. I think for PC, it's Alt Shift T. I'm not sure. You can check it out. So I'm going to go Insert New Track. And you'll see a track appear. Now, one of the things you want to make sure is, remember I talked about expanding this left area. Sometimes you won't see all the controls in your new track. So if you expand it, hover your arrow again in between the two. It's a little persnickety. It's not cooperating. And I'm expanding it all the way so I can make sure that I see all the controls for this. The other way you can get at a lot of these controls too is to go up to the View menu and go Mixer. And your mixer may pop up as a floating menu, and if you notice, it'll duplicate anything that's appearing on the left-hand side in your mixer window as well. I find it easier to work just in the tracks menu at the left-hand side. You may decide differently. First thing I want to talk about is the volume control of the track. This is now basically a knob that if you click and drag, you can increase or decrease the volume right here. And you'll also, when you do that, you might notice that down at the bottom of your mixer, it's also replicating exactly what you're doing down below. So you should be able to see both of those moving. So that's your volume control. Up or down. Your mute button right here, basically if that's selected, that will mute this particular track. This is different from the solo button in that if you have a number of tracks and you just want to say, you know, I do a lot of orchestral stuff, so say I just want to hear the first violin in my 70-piece orchestra, I will just solo the first violin part and just hear the first violin part. So that's the difference between the two of these. Mute will mute an individual track. Solo will mute every track except for the one that you've selected the solo button on. The effects I will talk about later. Panning, okay? If you go down to your mixer window down here, okay, you'll see something called a pan button. And if you'll notice, it's also right up here at top, so I can talk about, I'll keep up on top. Panning will move your signal in the stereo field from left to right or center, depending on where you want to do with that. We're all pretty familiar with that. Next thing, if you want to record on a track, you have to record enable it. And the first thing you want to do before that is you want to actually, down here you have something called input. So if I click on the input pull down arrow, I'll see my input mono, stereo, etc., etc. In this case I want to do input 1 mono. And we've already set up our audio. I'm just having mine go right from the computer. So you want to make sure that that input is selected correctly. If you're working with a MIDI track, you'll change it to a virtual keyboard or all MIDI inputs, etc., etc. So now if I hit the record arm disarm button right here, notice that down here and up to the side you can see a meter. And this meter is recording my voice right now. And the same thing appears down here in your mixer window if you have that open. And you want to be careful with this that you're getting a nice strong signal but not too strong a signal. Once you get up into the red, see up here, this tells me that I've distorted and I'm basically recording distortion. So you want to keep an eye on this when you're recording. So I could actually right now record my voice and have it appear. And I'll talk more about doing that later. So I'm going to turn this off for now. The other nice thing that you can do with Reaper is you can actually drag MP3 AIF or WAV files right onto the workspace. So in this case I have one over here, one of my compositions I did. I'm just going to drag the file right into Reaper and notice that it will automatically put the file into it, and I'll hit play. And you can now hear my MP3 file. And we'll be doing a lot of this when we start to drag in sound effects and other things that we start to loop. Another important command that you'll remember is Command or Control Z. Command Z on Mac, Control Z on PC. And this is your undo command. And you're going to find out you use this a lot. You have multiple undos. So I can undo my drag by going Command Z. I can undo my track add just keep going, and eventually all the things I showed you, I'm just constantly hitting my Command Z. I just undid everything I did. That's a nice command because you'll find that sometimes you'll get buried and you want to get out of what you're not sure how you got to where you are. Command Z or Control Z on PC will help you. So practice adding and moving around and maybe even recording something. I'll talk more about that in the next tutorial.